sometimes you have to stop.
Mm-hmm.
Stop the bus and restart.
That's what I had to do.
John Ellis.
Yeah. HanléBarnard.
From Tree63. You know, before you were Tree63 and you wanted to be Tree, I listened to a Tree track this morning.
From who? What Tree?
From the punk band from Boston.
Oh, and?
What was it called? It was called Don't Fear, or A Lot of Fear. A Lot of Fear. His name is... Yes, I thought, who's these guys that told you can't be Tree? And I've got good news. I think his name's Dave Tree. They had a get-together in 2022, Tree, the punk band from Boston.
And?
Well, I mean, punk in Boston is a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently it speaks to a lot of people. So,
God bless him.
And you know what's so nice is we're giving Tree some publicity. Dave Tree, Tree63. The name Tree when you were in Durban.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't have a name in Durban.
Are we on?
Yes.
Hi, I'm John Ellis.
No, we've already started.
Hi, fans. I'm John Ellis from the band Tree63.
Tree63.
From Durban, South Africa.
Yes. Well, you were in Durban back in the day.
Born and raised.
You wanted to perform, but you didn't have a name back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you come up with Tree?
That was December 96. We played 5 songs.
Yeah.
And then we knew, okay, this is a band worth pursuing.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere in February or March 97, that's where it occurred to me, there were various ideas for a name. And Tree made sense on 2 levels. One, it's short and sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Just summer.
Tree.
Yeah.
Yes.
But the other thing is there are lots of biblical images of what a tree stands for and symbolizes.
It's a beautiful name, a tree.
But a tree is a big structure that gives shelter and shade. And then mythologically there was the trees in the Garden of Eden. And
there's a lot of mythology. There's a lot of images in the Bible with trees.
Trees give life.
Yes, that's
and
beautiful.
Support life.
Yeah.
So it felt like on lots of levels a good name.
This is the name that you're going to go for, Tree.
Then that was 97. 2000 we get to America as Tree.
Okay.
With 2 albums out, Tree. And the label says to us, we need to change the name. Which is like, it's a lot to swallow because your identity is already established as a band. You're proud of your name. People know you in South Africa. And suddenly you have to change it completely or alter it. And it was a bit disconcerting. But they held up the Tree63 CD and it said, well, this album was called 63 and it said Tree63 on it because Tree63.
Yes.
Band name and album title. And they said, what about Tree63? And I went, no, that's terrible. But you learn to live with these things.
It's got a nice ring to it.
It does now, right?
Tree does.
So those bicycle locks where you have you can set your code?
Yes.
Mine is 363.
Now everybody knows and we can steal your bike.
Yep.
Thank you for that. When you were discovered and you went to the States, what's fascinating about you, there's a lot of fascinating things about Tree63. But your subject matter is you are singing to God.
And about God.
And about God, which
Yes.
is Psalm 63 as well, references to that. Beautiful psalm, I read it this morning.
Yeah.
But you're not seen, if I watched you at the Barnyard the other day, there's a lot of non-Christians that come. You're not just it's interesting for me that you're a Christian band,
Really?
but there's so many, you're reaching such a far audience. It's like POD, do you remember then?
Yeah.
Creed,
Creed, yeah.
that is your subject. And
So what are you saying? It's a
I'm
bit
saying,
uncomfortable? Or?
No, not uncomfortable for me. I am a believer. It's not for me. It's interesting for me.
If you're not a believer, can you listen to Tree63? Can you enjoy Tree63?
Well, firstly, I've always been interested in the Christian music genre, and Christian rock. And yours is different for me.
I've got a theory.
What is it?
I don't think Christian music as a genre should exist.
I quite like that.
There's the whole genre thing is false anyway. It's a marketing thing. And Christian music as a genre is a quintessentially culturally American idea.
Okay.
It doesn't exist in the UK. It doesn't exist anywhere else in the world. People just sing music. It's about girls or God, or anything in between. In America, it's a genre because it used to make sense in the CD shop. You'd walk in and you'd see grunge, metal, jazz, hip hop, Christian. Because in America, Christian music is an industry with its own center, its own record labels, its own legal structures, its own audience. It's a multi-billion-dollar cultural industry. Not in the world, just in America.
You were in America. You were seen as...
So when I started writing songs about God, I had no idea that Christian music existed as a thing. I just wrote about God. So did Bob Dylan, so did Van Morrison, so did Bono, so did lots of people. George Harrison from the Beatles wrote about his idea of God in terms of Hindu mysticism. Yeah. I just wrote about God because it felt like the right thing for me to. That's what I wanted to focus on. Later on, we become a Christian band, and then we get called a gospel band, which I really, really struggled with because those are just things that people trying to categorize you and stick you in a box and then leave you there. Fold the box over, tape it up, and leave you on the corner.
And having spoken to you before and having learned more about you and listening to your music so often, I can see that wouldn't sit so well with you necessarily.
No, I mean, rock and roll is about don't put me in a box. Rock and roll is about breaking rules and being on the edge of things, right? Speaking back into the center from the edges. So, and Christian music should be too, because to me, Jesus is an edge guy, not a center guy. That's why I was so attracted to the Jesus in the first place. He's a guy on the outside looking in and going, there's some things that we could probably change.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so the songs are about this edge margin place, the margins between heaven and earth. Those are interesting places to explore and live in, liminal spaces. And when you're suddenly drawn back into the center and given a branding saying you are now a Christian band, or you are now a worship band, you are now a gospel band, it limits you so terribly and makes you appeal only to these radio stations and these listeners. And it shortens your appeal. So the fact that Tree was well known on non-Christian radio stations in South Africa before we went to America was the whole point.
Yeah,
we had hits on 5FM. Alex J played our songs, and so did Barney Simon, and these were rock guys. We were thinking that's exactly where Tree needs to position itself and be positioned.
Because in South Africa it wasn't that way.
There was no boundaries.
There wasn't boundaries.
There was a sense of Christian music, but I wasn't interested in it because I didn't grow up in the churchy vibes. I'm not from the church. I became a Christian in my 20s on my own. Me and Jesus in my bedroom on my own. I had no idea about church. I had no idea about the Bible, about pastors and Christian lifestyles, and that stuff came later. But initially it was just me and God and me making a decision for my own life personally. And then I wrote songs about it. That's how it started. Because for me, encountering Jesus, the person, was such a powerful life moment. It wasn't a choice, I'll become a Christian now. It was a powerful life moment that changed my life. And I thought, I've got to tell people, this is real. This is life-changing stuff. That was my instinct. I mean, write songs about it, because that's how I told people about things in my songs, right? And then years later, it became, John's in a Christian band. And I went, how did that happen?
Because you go on Wikipedia, they kind of go this
Christian
rock, known as a Christian rock band.
It's so funny. There's a South African music directory that lists all the bands that existed in the last 50, 60 years since rock and roll started in South Africa. Tree's not on there.
Not on there.
And I go, I don't mind anymore. But there was a time where I thought, no, come on.
It's strange that it is because of the themes that you are put in.
Christianity is an unpopular theme.
Well, you said, and I've watched quite a few interviews because you've had a few, and you said even in let's put it, the Christian rock where you guys were in the States and not in you said that your music was a lot about confessions, which is not necessarily what the Christian rock necessarily sells very well, doesn't sell that well.
So Christian music in the last 15 years has evolved into this thing where it's just, they call it modern worship. It's just worship that you can use in a church context. So you go to church on Sunday morning, you sing what they call vertical songs to God. God, you are this, God, you are that, I love you. There's a space for that and there's a place for it, and that kind of song has its own value. And it's difficult to write, and you must be very good at that, and that's great. It's not particularly what I feel personally called to do. Inspired by, I don't listen to that music. It's not musically very engaging. It's for a particular context, which is church services on Sunday mornings and worship services Friday nights. It's got its own thing. It's utility music, and it's great. It's just not what Tree's about, right? Why am I telling you that?
Because you're saying the confessional side of it in terms of the sales or popularity.
To me, popular music, folk music, confessional singer-songwriting. Bob Dylan was somebody who really, after Woody Guthrie, he's somebody who really popularized this idea of using folk music. And then you putting that into a rock and roll context to talk about what it felt like to be alive. Not Elvis Presley stuff, which I love. We're gonna rock tonight. That's great.
Yes.
But Bob was, I wonder why I'm rocking tonight.
Why am I rocking tonight?
I'm rocking tonight because I feel this. I'm attracted to that. So here's an example. I was a Sting fan when Sting was in the Police.
The Police were great.
Right.
Yeah.
But Sting solo didn't spend the rest of his career singing confessional songs about what it felt like to be Sting. He instead went down the road of inventing characters and singing story songs. To be honest, even Roxanne, the first Police hit, is a song about a prostitute. It's not about something he personally experienced, unless him and Roxanne were friends.
Yes.
But I go, as a listener, okay, great, Sting, I love this idea, this song you wrote about this, what it's like to be a soldier in Syria. But it's not your personal experience. You're inventing the idea and singing what it feels like to be a refugee or something. I'm not interested. As a songwriter, I'm interested in what it feels like to be you.
Okay, so the stories, the things you've been through, it's a very
personal... Don't you think that speaks more as a listener?
Well, I think it depends from musician to musician.
Yeah, fair enough.
For me, and I think if you're a songwriter like yourself, if I'm a songwriter, I would do it your way around.
Why? What are you looking for in a song?
Because I look at things, the only reference I have is me. But that is what you're ultimately doing.
What are you looking for in a song when you listen to an artist?
I'm looking for... Wow. That's such a... this is the John Ellis podcast. I guess I'm looking for...
Welcome to John Ellis' podcast.
Welcome to the John Ellis podcast where I'm being...
Today my guest is HanléBarnard.
Thank you, John. It's wonderful to be with you again. What I'm looking for is interesting chord structures, which you have. I'm looking for tension. I'm looking for tension within the chords. I'm looking for unpredictable chord structures, what you have.
And lyrically?
And I'm looking for lyrics, beautiful lyrics. About whatever the person wants to sing about.
Maybe I'm just odd. Maybe I like...
You are odd?
Thank you. It's nice to have you on my show.
Thank you. Swap back now.
Okay, here's another example. John Lennon.
Okay, me and John don't... I'm George Harrison.
Okay.
Or,
me too, I love George.
I love that song.
Okay, I love the Beatles. I'm a Beatle fanatic. I know what they were doing on the 19th of February 2007. I mean, I'm that kind of fan.
They won the Grammys with the song now.
Yes, exactly.
Rolling Stone, yeah.
Which I shouldn't have.
Okay, why?
Grammys has become a disaster.
But well, not anymore, because the Rolling Stones at least won Best Rock Album.
They shouldn't
have what rock?
Right.
Best Rock Album?
They're great, but they shouldn't have won the Grammy.
Tree63 should have
There should be a separate senior category. Right?
Senior category?
Yeah.
Well, then you and I would be in the senior category.
Speak for yourself, darling. So,
and now for our
quick advert. John Lennon was the confessional Beatle.
Right.
Paul sang about when I'm 64 and have lovely whimsical songs. But
imagine there's no heaven.
But John wrote confessionally, in my life, nowhere, man. I need help.
Okay, so those were the songs that he wrote in the Beatles before he joined Yoko Ono.
Even after, especially, in fact, more after, he was even more Don't Let Me Down, all these great songs.
Don't Let Me Down, that's a great track.
He's a confessional writer, and I'm drawn to that. Honesty in lyric writing.
Who else is a confessional? Bob Dylan.
Bruce Springsteen.
Bruce Springsteen is very, very...
Tom Petty, I'm a big fan of Tom Petty.
Love Tom Petty.
I'm drawn to those guys.
Yes, I can, and one can't help but listen to them. One can't help but feel something.
Right? If you, I mean, you could write a song about us sitting here in the color of the blue cup. That would be probably a great song.
Yeah.
But I want to know what it feels like when the cup drops and breaks and then you feel regret.
Okay.
There's a song.
So you're pushing it. Yes, you're pushing it.
Joni Mitchell.
You like the Jerry Springer of songwriting.
No, please don't call me that.
Push a bit further.
No, please don't call me Jerry Springer of anything.
Shame.
Yeah.
Johnny Mitchell.
Johnny Mitchell. Wow, genius.
Did you watch Turbulent Indigo? listen to Turbulent Indigo, which is one of my favorite albums.
I have it. I'm a bit of a strange person on another level.
Yeah.
I buy CDs. And I recently found Turbulent Indigo on CD somewhere. I'm very excited.
A Song of Sorrow.
Yeah, I need to go listen.
About Job.
Oh, wow.
Let me speak. It's a beautiful one.
I'll play. You sing. Ready?
No.
Ladies and gentlemen.
This is the wrong way round.
Live today.
Do you want me to sing about a blue cup?
In the studio. HanléBarnard.
The blue cup breaks over John Ellis. The life's went dim around your face. This is the strangest podcast, and I'm not gonna spit in your face. How was that? Thank you.
You see?
Yeah.
It meant something.
Yeah.
You sang from your heart because you.
Well, I'm not gonna spit in your face. Was
Thank
just
God.
rhyming with the previous
Thank
line.
God. Yeah.
You know.
This is a strange podcast.
This is.
But I like it.
But I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
It's got to be real. My thing is, let's be honest.
I like that song. I wish I didn't say spit in your face. I just said you should know your place, or in the world of the face.
It's too late now. It's on the
too
podcast.
late. I can't take. I can edit it out.
No, you can't.
Okay.
Jesus saw you. I like honesty in everything I do.
It's
podcasts,
true.
interviews,
It's true.
and I've got myself into a lot of trouble for doing that.
But that's the whole point of conversations.
Well, I don't know. Apparently, this is also showbiz, and I need to be more showbiz.
No, please don't.
I need to be like, hey, so yeah.
The audience doesn't like
my
it.
career. No. I don't really care. I'm here to communicate something.
Exactly.
While I'm here.
You do the same with your music.
Do I?
Yes, you do. Thank you for the tickets to the Barnyard because...
You owe me some money.
I know, I owe you money. I'll pay it in your account. What interested me so much about the show is... Okay, firstly, I know you had a bit of flu.
Yes.
Which is what we have. This is great. But your voice live...
Mm-hmm. Good?
It was...
Bad?
It
Indifferent?
was... Well, David told me about Huey Lewis and the News
Yes.
Live, all right? And he said, listen to them live. And I said, you should hear John Ellis live, because live, you hit notes. I wouldn't have said you were ill at all. You were hitting notes, and I was going... And the more you listen, the more you get in this world of what you're creating and painting.
Mm-hmm. That's a relief. I'm glad to hear that.
It was absolutely beautiful.
Thank you. I struggled that night. And I'm struggling as I get older, because the songs were written when I was in my 20s, and I sang these very high songs. As I get older, I struggle more and more too. As my voice changes, as the human body changes.
It does change.
The vocal cords change. I'm struggling with to get my voice back into shape to sing tree music. So
let's talk about that. I didn't notice that, and I want to thank you. It was magnificent.
Thank you.
Let's talk about the break you took, because you were performing with Darryl Swart, right? When did you guys call it a day? Because it was rough, right? You performed a lot. You were on the road. You guys were performing a lot. What was it like being? Firstly, let's just go there. How was it? How was your lifestyle going around?
It was exciting for a long time, and then it became increasingly more like a job, and then it became a really difficult job.
Okay.
Because there's a line. You're involved in the entertainment industry. Let's be honest. Even if it's Christian music, you're entertaining Christians, whatever the audience is. You're in showbiz, putting on a show, entertaining people, and it's exciting when you're younger, and you're in new countries. We're flying around the world, living this life that we always dreamed about, right? And then suddenly it's every weekend for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years.
Sure.
Then, as some of the demands of other life start creeping in, or opposing what you're doing in terms of being married and having kids, or in relationships, but you're gone every weekend. That's not a very sustainable situation. Something's going to give at some point, right? For me, the constant travel was exhausting.
Yeah.
So in the old days, a band would put an album out, prepare mentally for a 2-year world tour, come back, take a long break, write a new album, do it again. But for us in America, there was never a break. You did an album, and you just played every weekend until the next year when there was another album.
Were you pushed to play so much?
Well,
could you not have taken a break?
Being a foreign band in America, we're under pressure to survive financially, so you had to take every gig you could. Right? There wasn't a lot of tour support from the record label. You had to live on your wits. And so we'd take everything, and we'd drive from Nashville to California, which was a 3-day drive, to play to 100 people, and then drive home again.
Hectic, yeah.
And with a baby in the car seat at some point. So it mentally as well, and emotionally, it was so exhausting that I found myself struggling even on a mental health level. I didn't know I was dealing with a low-grade depression, which got worse over time. I only went on to antidepressants later in my life, and I wish I'd been on them earlier, because it would have changed certain decisions I made about who I was working with or how I worked. But that's how it goes, right?
That's how the industry goes as well,
Yeah, there was also zero focus on the mental health of musicians. There is now in Nashville. There are setups designed specifically to look after musicians being on the road, because it's such an artificial lifestyle.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, you tell me, because you lived it.
You're in a bubble.
The expert,
you're in this strange bubble that isn't really natural. You're on the road all the time. You're never at home. You live in a American tour bus, which is like you sleep in a coffin at night. It's fun for the first year, but it's not sustainable as you get into your 30s. It's just not.
It's not fun anymore.
It's not fun, and it can be if you're very careful, but we never quite had the resources to make it fun. So we were always living between airports and buses. I'm not complaining.
No, I understand. No.
We did have a great time.
A lot of bands talk about the difficulty of touring. It is.
To me, you know what it felt like? To me, it felt like being in a very long military campaign, and then coming out of the military and going back into civilian life. And then you get that disorientation of not knowing. How
do you return to the real world after, being in a bubble, and even after that, it's a bit like, it sounds a bit like you were in a military base camp returning from a war.
I felt like I was in the army with 4 mates, and then the war stops and you leave, and you go, wow, what happens now? That's when I took that long break that I really needed.
And how did the other members of your band, Daniel, is it, Ornellas, how did they deal with it as well? Were they also going through similar stuff?
Yeah, there were similar pressures. Darryl just got married. Daniel had 2 very small kids, and there was a break, some kind of break needed. What we did in 2005 was, we told our booking agents that we would only work 3 weekends out of 4.
Yes.
Take 1 weekend off a month, and they were livid with us. How dare you?
Yes, but you need
no bands in the industry take a weekend off. A whole weekend is worth $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, depending how much you're getting paid per show. Are you crazy? You're going to ruin your career. But we did it for a year, 1 weekend off a month, to be with family and home, and we survived. And other bands started copying us.
Difficult for the wives as well. I know. quite a few musicians and their wives manage them,
Yeah.
just to be part, and that's how it kind of works. And then strangely enough, we're having a conversation about, depends what audience the husband is that you married. Because if it's a rock audience, it's very different if you're married to a rock star than if you're married to a guy that performs at schools for families.
Absolutely.
And I didn't realize that.
You have to also call into question why men and women want to be in a situation where they're getting love from 30,000 people a night on a stage. It's a strange thing to want to do with your life, right?
Well, it's about the music, isn't it?
Not really.
No.
I think pathologically it's also about this pathological need for acceptance and attention.
Yeah. There's a whole lot of psychological stuff. Would you like a therapist number?
Yes.
Can I send a few to you? But no, in all seriousness, you're right. Why would you want to perform in front of...
There's something megalomaniacal about it.
It's a bit thrilling.
There's a bit of ego involved. I mean, it takes a lot to get up on stage with a guitar and go, hey, here's a song I wrote, and you're going to love it. It takes a lot of ego and bravado and chutzpah.
And the way you say it as well, it's true. It's a little bit, and if people are watching you.
Yeah, it's not for everyone, and I'm actually quite an introverted person. So when I get on stage and suddenly I'm throwing shapes with a guitar, it's a bit of an odd thing for me to choose to have done with my life. But I fell in love with music age 10, and it's all I ever wanted to do. And so I really didn't feel like I had much choice.
No. I spoke to Charlene about that and said guitarists must play guitar. That's what you must do.
Yeah.
But when we go back to that hectic time on the road, and how it had obviously strained, it does have strain on one.
Yeah.
How did it come to the point where you guys called it a day?
I'll tell you.
Because it's quite a decision to make between...
It was my decision.
Was it yours? Because you travelled a lot then, hey? You were all over the world.
I was miserable. I didn't really realise it. And under immense pressure. I was the only one writing all the songs. I was writing all these songs and trying to stay afloat and trying to keep it together, and the manager was leaving, and the marriage was tricky, and it was just a lot of pressure on lots of levels. And added to all that, you're permanently far away from home. Right? There's no support base emotionally or spiritually, because you're in another country, far from South Africa. My South Africanness is very important to me for some reason. I don't know why. I feel very, very strongly about being South African. And in this situation, I was far from home, struggling with whatever people struggle with, added to the thing of feeling like a bit of a refugee,
Yes. What's kind of some of the music you wrote during that stage? Do you think that as a confessional person going through, was there some...
Yeah, the last Tree album was called Sunday, and there's a lot of fat on that album.
Okay.
If you listen to it lyrically, there's a lot of... It sounds like an angry album. And then my first solo album from 2010 was songs written just after that, and they're also angry
The
songs.
fight song,
Come Out Fighting.
Come Out Fighting, yeah.
So the songs reflect the spiritual space you're in. Hope they should anyway.
Well, they do. Yeah, well, yours does.
I can't. I feel
so
important.
you told the band you had a meeting.
So actually, a mutual friend, phoned me out of the blue from England and said, "I can tell you're not enjoying life. You need a break. You're not in the right space in the industry in your life." And I said, "Okay, good idea." And it was a 6-month sabbatical that was planned. And then 15 years later, I go, maybe it's time to come out of retirement.
So you moved back to Durban.
Yeah.
And you became
It was meant to be very short.
Very
break.
short.
Yeah.
But you stayed there.
But my kids, suddenly it was time to put my eldest child in school and get a house to make a base, and then the next minute we entrenched back in South Africa.
Okay.
And I felt it was time to take a break eventually from Tree63 and explore my own songwriting, because Tree, like I mentioned before, the Christian music thing is a very specific style of writing, musically and especially lyrically. Away from Tree, I could explore all the influences I had that didn't fit in Tree. So my first solo album was a musical adventure for me. I really needed it to break away from what Tree had become, and I loved it. But I naively expected there to be some momentum that would carry me from Tree into my solo career. But it doesn't usually happen for people in bands. and it didn't happen for me. And so I made 4 or 5 solo albums, and I'm proud of all of them.
Yeah.
I'm glad I wrote them, but I feel now that Tree is really the real expression of whatever John Ellis is here.
Your music that you wrote.
Yeah.
You wrote the music.
Yeah.
You became, then you worked at the university as a...
Yes.
That's very cool.
You've done your research.
You see, it's the podcast.
You should run a podcast.
Thank you, John. Yeah. Appreciate you. You were a literature professor. Actually, you told me on radio as well that you did... you were a professor in literature.
Not professor, I wish.
No, you're not a professor. You were simply a lecturer.
Simple lecturer.
Working on, but you are going to do your PhD, right?
Yes, it is in
but that
progress.
is in the pipeline.
But that's just like almost a vanity project, like a side hustle.
It is a vanity project, yes.
Yeah.
But it's a great vanity project.
Ah.
When you come back, I want to talk about that.
Yes.
In literature specifically.
Yes, English lit.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Well...
Because lyrics and
I don't know.
confessional and poetry and all those kind of things.
I don't know. There's people who don't read who write great lyrics, so it's interesting. But it tends to be the more you read, the better you write.
Yes, definitely.
Even if it comes to emails, the more. In fact, to be honest, the more you read, the better you think.
I agree. What's your top up there? Which book do you literature? I know it's a difficult. I like Shakespeare.
Yeah,
I like Chekhov. I like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But it's amazing the poetry that goes in there, Yeats and that kind of stuff.
I couldn't. Yeah, absolutely.
Heavy.
I couldn't begin to say this is my favorite thing.
Yeah.
I read a wide variety of things, but I've always been a reader. So on the road in America, the guys would be sleeping in a bunk, and I'd be looking for the nearest bookshop and spend hours in there. Part of it was a mental health thing. I just needed to be around books to make me feel secure.
Well, it was also the tension and kind of looking for something. And
but I genuinely love... apparently, if you look at most rock stars' lives, they're really successful ones. They always have the music and something else just to balance them out. Bryan Adams is a great photographer, apparently. Who else? Freddie Mercury collected art and kimonos and cats.
Yeah, so does Lars Ulrich.
Yeah.
He's an art collector.
Brian May is an astronomer, I think.
Okay. Makes sense.
So everyone's got something. And music is not enough to sustain. It's not. I think it's not healthy to have one thing. No. It's good to have a variety of related things. So for me, it's poetry. I write a lot of poetry. And literature and books and reading. And so I have a huge collection of books, and I'm just one away from having enough.
There's always that one.
Like guitars, right? You never quite have enough.
Yes, because I want to get your guitars because you had a few on stage and you were going back and forth.
Yes.
And I was kind of, how does he tune it? So, and, it was amazing. But to get back to your literature phase, not that you're still not in it, but how did you then phone the guys and say, look, I'm thinking I'm going to come back with Tree63.
How it happened was a particular songwriter in South Africa, in Cape Town, who is an old friend of Tree63's and one of the most gifted songwriters in the country. I'll say his name. His name is Ashton Gardner.
Yes.
I personally think he's one of the most gifted writers in South Africa ever. But he lives an eclectic lifestyle. And he doesn't put himself out there very much. But he's somebody whose work has really spoken to me. He said to me, last year, he said, I see you enjoying playing Bryan Adams covers in the corner of a pub as a side hustle, but you're the guy who wrote these Tree songs. What are you doing?
What are you doing? You need that.
And somehow or other, something inside me went,
that's it.
What am I doing? I wrote 7 albums of Tree63 material. Why am I not playing them? What's holding me back? There'd been something about Tree and what Tree had come to represent in the industry that I'd grown weary of. And I suddenly realized last year, I don't care anymore. I'm not in the music business. I can be in the Tree63 business, where I go and sing Tree63 songs. If you don't like them or they don't fit into the current musical top 20 sense of what's right and wrong, I don't care anymore.
I think it even fits in more now, because if you look at Million Lights, Treasure, that stuff, it's stuff people talk about.
Regardless of whether it's popular, I'm going to do it anyway, because people remember Tree well. And there's such a lot of goodwill out there for those songs because they meant so much to people 20 years ago when they first came out. It's like these songs meant a lot to people, and they were a bit upset with me that I went away. And they tolerated my solo stuff, but that wasn't what I'm here to do.
No.
And that's not what they wanted to hear from me. They want to hear these songs, and I'm going to sing them now.
And you've also been writing more material within the Tree63 umbrella, have you been? More confessional stuff, more stuff where you are coming out. And I found that the show was very personal.
Really?
And I found it very intimate, even though it was in quite a large venue.
I'm glad to hear that.
And so these two guys you're working with now, Angus Warden, and Mr. Knipe.
Yes.
They're fascinating to watch as they look at you, and there seems to be constant communication.
That's good news.
With Deon and you, and the enjoyment on stage. It's tough because it's new, it's fresh. How long have you been working with them?
A year now.
Yes.
It's taken a year to get to a point where we can play one concert, because there was so much prep to do. For me to relearn my songs and relearn the spirit they were written in, communicate them to two other people. So Darryl and Daniel have stayed in the Northern Hemisphere. Darryl lives in Canada, the drummer, and Daniel lives in Nashville, and they've moved on with their lives, and it was just, it was time to do something with Tree again. We spoke long and hard about what it would look like, and they agreed to let me go ahead and do this with other people, and I'm very grateful to them.
Lovely of them.
Very grateful to them. They're brothers in arms. We went through everything together. This is a new chapter, and Angus and Deon are very excited to be part of it. They watched Tree from afar 20 years ago, and now they're on it.
Into it, and they're brilliant.
They're so motivated to be there, and they love the music. I'm so grateful that I found them.
And drummers are busy.
Yeah.
I mean, he plays with Majosi as well, right?
Deon does.
Deon.
The bass player, yeah.
Deon does.
So there's lots of music going on in their lives, but they've committed themselves to this, and I'm really grateful.
That's amazing that they are. I'm on bass, I must say. Phenomenal.
Deon he's so excited. He's
amazing.
Musically, he's such an excitable guy. He loves music so much. His energy feeds me.
I could see that happening, and there's a respect for you that's there, and there's a flow there where they're watching each other, because it's always interesting for me, trios. I always find trios music. The sound's so large, like Rush is a trio, and I kind of go, how does that happen?
There's a skill to making a three-piece sound really big.
Yes.
And I'm very proud that Tree was always known as a live band. We had this massive live sound.
It's massive for three people. I was sitting going, it sounds like there's another...
Yeah, people in America would always ask us, where are your backing tracks? And we'd say, no, we haven't got any. And they couldn't believe it, because we have this really big sound. And
it's because of your chords, how is it because the music's quite complex? It's not that simple.
No, it's not necessarily. It's how you attack the instruments you're playing.
Oh, right.
The amps are turned down to 11
instead
of 10. All the industry joke. But no, but also the level of passion you play with.
Okay.
I've got to draw as much passion and skill out of whoever I'm playing with as possible, and we all go there together. It's
an energy thing with a three, because you can't rely on a rhythm guitarist or I don't want to.
I can, but I choose not to. I choose to be the only guitar player in the band, and then I've got to live with it.
Then you've got to live with your responsibility. Tell us about the guitars you have on stage. You've got different ones. Tell me.
Typical guitar player. I've got one too many at home, but there's 2 or 3 that I choose to use live.
Okay.
A 1996 Fender Telecaster, which has become my main thing. But originally I was a Gibson Les Paul guy.
Yeah.
I own a 1980 Deluxe, which was the sound of Tree for all those early years. But as you mature as a guitar player, as an instrumentalist, your tastes change and you get different tones out of different things. So I found I'm using that one less. On that concert you saw me play, I also used for the first time an electric 12-string.
Yes, I saw that.
I've never used before live, and it's quite tricky because the tuning tends to wander. And I'm just trying it out to see if it works in the context of Tree. I think it does.
It does. It really works. It fills the sound. And I was actually getting nervous when you picked it up, because I thought, how is he going to tune? What if that's...
Thankfully, I tuned it before the concert, and it roughly stayed.
Yeah. But there's always a chance, isn't there?
Yes, but that's rock and roll.
Yeah.
Rock and roll's got to be a little bit out of tune.
Yeah, oh my gosh. the thing of doing something live
on a high wire.
Right? It's
That's where the energy and the excitement comes from, of being on the verge of failure.
That's the best description I've heard.
Wait, maybe
ever.
that's the name of the next Tree album.
Yes,
on the verge of failure.
On the verge of failure. You are on a knife
Yeah.
point. That's
Right?
how you feel.
As an actress, you're one line away from forgetting what the next line is. And the energy and the excitement keeps you in the zone, right?
Yes, you
It's
notice
terrifying.
everything. It is terrifying. Do you think that how you see yourself now that you're coming back, do you think there's sometimes you question how people are going to take it?
Yeah, much more than the early days. You question because I think as you get older, you're filled with more self-awareness that you know you're an idiot, as opposed to thinking maybe you might be when you're 20. When you're 50, you know you are. And also that sense of self-doubt creeps in of, I wonder if I'm still able to do this. I wonder if it looks okay with me doing it. And I'm one of those people that overthinks everything to the point where I'm immobile. So learning to trust my instincts again as an older person. When you in your 20s, you react out of pure instinct, and there's a lot of excitement in that. When you're in your 50s, late 40s, early 50s, you've slowed down a bit, and you started to think critically about why you do what you do. You're more self-aware, hopefully. Not everyone, let's be honest. But you start thinking, I wonder if I could redo this. And before long, if you let yourself go too far, you can outthink yourself to the point where you do nothing. But it takes a lot more to get on stage now.
Yes, but I think that the support that the people were giving you on that show that I saw,
that's everything.
The appreciation they have and the understanding that they have.
That's everything. Don't you find
is
you can only give so much as the audience giving you.
Yes.
You can prepare for a year, and you get on stage, and if the audience sits like this and watches you and goes home, there's nothing there. But I've always fed off the response of the audience.
It's nothing like a kind audience.
Even a hostile one makes you want to teach them a lesson.
Listen, don't.
Right? Rock and roll's about coming up on stage and
You'll
going,
get down, hit them.
Listen, damn it, here's my song.
Yeah,
as opposed to, I hope you don't mind, but I'm going to play my song now. No. Rock and roll's an aggressive, offensive attitude. Not that there's something offensive about what Tree does, or trying to offend people, or attack people.
No.
But there's something like, here's Tree63, what are you going to do about it? There's that attitude.
Have you always been good with vocals on performance? How do you hit, you hit some notes there that was, I was impressed. It was, sometimes you hear people live and you kind of go, wow. That didn't quite work.
I'm a guitar player who has to sing because there's no one else to sing.
Okay.
First, I'm not a singer, I don't think.
That's, okay, I'm just going to keep quiet there.
I've always been just a guitar player. And then later on, I started writing and singing what I'd written because I'll do it.
I see.
So
strange how a lot of people get into a position,
right?
Because they'll do it, you know.
Yeah, I went, oh, okay, I'll sing.
Yeah.
So to this day, I have an insecurity about my singing. And I go, I'm comfortable, I can rock the band with a guitar, but when it comes to singing, I'll always be a little bit on the back foot and hoping that I convey what I've written in a believable way. With as much passion as I can muster. You know? That's the plan.
It's working.
Good news.
It's really working. Tell us about this guitar over here.
So this is a bit of a good and bad story.
All right.
This is a Gibson
Pretty.
L1. It's a reissue of the 1930s. Okay. Look, fans.
Wow. Beautiful.
But the reason why this is a sad story is that this is the third...
I'm going to take this away so we can see it.
This is the third Gibson acoustic I've owned. I've owned two before that both were stolen from me in KZN.
No.
And somewhere out in South Africa are floating around two beautiful handmade Gibson acoustics that have been gone since 2012. This replaced those two, and I love it, and it's been mine for a long time, and I love how it sounds, and I love playing it. But those early two are always thorns in my memory of these beautiful Gibson acoustics.
Worse than stealing an instrument.
Yeah, well.
Maybe we'll find them now. Someone will
if
feel
you know
really
about
bad.
These guitars, phone the following number. It's at the bottom of your screen.
Police
now.
file.
Yeah.
Do you remember Police File?
Yeah.
And this one?
This is a 13-year-old guitar, maybe 14. Stock standard from the factory in Nashville. Bought in Cape Town, South Africa. Mm-hmm. But it's played a lot of music in the last 15 years.
Do you write on this guitar?
I have, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because the sound is... Now they want to hear the sound, I'm sure.
In my heart there is a stone, a little mountain of my own. Lately I'm beginning to believe it's too hard for me. Trips me up when I am walking, when I'm running to your arms. I can't see you, it's my only view. Confessional lyrics again.
Beautiful. Oh my gosh, it is beautiful.
Thank you.
And that voice of yours.
The backing singer who's singing lead vocals because he has to.
Backing singer who's singing. The best backing vocals I've ever heard.
Well, thank you.
What are you thinking about this year and about what your plans are for? Because I'm going to talk to you again later this year. We're going to see what's happening.
And one of the reasons we're talking today.
Yes, I know.
Is because we're at the front end of a long climb back up a mountain.
Thank you.
So you and I just met recently.
Yes.
And you hadn't really even heard of Tree before.
I've heard of Million Lights.
You heard the songs.
And my sister was a big fan of Tree.
But I'm from another part of the country, and then I was overseas. You from here. We hadn't ever crossed paths before.
No.
So now as I relaunch Tree, some people who can't have heard of us before are getting to hear about us for the first time. And it's super interesting. I was talking to Karen Zoy the other day. She mentioned a few song titles to her neighbor.
Yeah.
The neighbor knew the songs, but not the band, and didn't know that they were South African songs.
Yes.
And this is 30 years almost after they were written. So it's very interesting to me that there's still some work to do to remind people who Tree63 is after all these years.
You're getting a lot of support from musicians, you're getting a lot of support from journalists and stuff like that, because I think that everybody wants you to continue and everybody wants to support you.
It's really gratifying, and I thought that Tree had stopped years ago and people remembered fondly from years ago, but people still remember it and still want it to happen. And I'm here to make them happy. But I'm really gratified that there's so much goodwill out there towards a band that was peaking in 2005, 6, 7, you know. So it's 20 years ago.
20 years ago.
Yeah.
And you are back, and I think it is a new chapter.
Yeah, chapter 2.
Chapter 2. Chapter 3. Chapter 2 was your literature. Chapter 1?
Oh, in terms of the John Ellis story?
Yes, the John Ellis
story. John Ellis story, this is probably chapter 52.
This is probably chapter 52.
But tree-wise, I think this is chapter 2.
There was
the early phase and then this long break, and now whatever this is. And I'm hoping that the future holds new Tree music, new albums.
I believe it will. I believe that it will, certainly. And if you just carry on for us and keep on confessing.
Well, there's lots to confess, darling.
I think everyone should write a confessional song.
When I was 52, no, but there's lots to say, you know.
There's lots to say.
Let's be honest, HanléBarnard.
Yes.
2025 is a very confusing time to be a person of faith.
Yeah.
There's never been more confusing in the years I've been a Christian. Call myself a Christian. I don't even know what that means anymore. Because 2025, to say you believe this and this and this about God and Jesus, there's somebody who'll go, well, you're wrong, I believe this and this is about Jesus. And if you don't agree with me, I will physically assault you.
It's crazy. Can you believe what you believe, your personal journey where you've walked, your confessions that you've done, your music that you write?
There was a time where you weren't encouraged to have personal ideas about these things. You went to have a communal idea of, we all believe this about God. Now it's fractured into a million pieces, a million lights, right? About, I believe this, you believe that, and we can try to get along. About the same God, apparently.
What would happen if a church asked you to play?
Well, it's fine, because my message still is kindness, love, hope, joy, all the beautiful things that Jesus stood for.
I felt like the Barnyard was a church that night.
That's amazing. And
not a church as in, but it was a place
there
was an emotion.
To me, a Tree gig becomes a place of hope.
Yes, it was very beautiful.
Hope that there's something better in this very, 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 very tricky world right now.
You said to people, it will be okay. And I think a lot of people need to hear that. It will be okay.
I like music that says it's not okay right now. So I was always a fan of Radiohead and darker things. But ultimately, the darkness isn't the end of the story. The end of the story is there's hope and light.
Yes.
So I'm the writer of those songs. And a Tree concert is not a place where we come and wallow in how difficult things are. We hopefully come to be encouraged that there is light in the darkness, whatever it looks like to you. You know, you might not call it Jesus, but it's still light.
Yes.
Right?
Right, absolutely.
That's the plan of Tree63.
It will be okay.
God said it will, we've got to believe it.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, and I remember that week I was having a difficult week and I was like, it will be okay.
Hey, I was having a difficult time on stage.
You were.
I was
you
singing,
said, I didn't notice.
I got to tell you, I sing these songs on stage in the context of Tree63 first to myself, then to whoever's listening. Each one of these songs is a song to me. Hey John, hang in there. Hey John, it's going to be all right. Right? Then if you hear that song and are encouraged by it, God bless you. That's great. But first of all, I'm up there going, God help me.
Help me get through this night. I just quickly wanted to ask you as well, that's not a very quick question. How do songs come to you? Does it come to you in your... You kind of have lines that you write down. What is the songwriting process and how do you know that's it? It's an intense question.
I love how songwriters always ask these questions and there's always a million
I hate
different
these
answers.
questions, but I always... everyone's is so different because sometimes you hear an idea or you hear... or you write from piano or you write... I don't know. Do you write?
I find as I'm getting older, I'm hearing voices.
Yeah, that's it. You hear it in your head.
I actually often will hear something in my head.
Okay.
And go, and it's usually in the subconscious, and then suddenly it breaks through to the conscious, and you go, oh, that's a good melody. I better record that on my phone.
Quickly before it goes missing.
Yeah, so my phone is full of voice memos to myself.
Okay.
Walking through a mall going, la da 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 la 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 la. Totally with no context, but you get home and you know exactly what it means, right? But what to me it means is there's melodies in the air floating past you all the time. You just reach up and grab one. And grab this. If you're listening, you'll grab them. If you're paying attention, you'll get them. I think, and then I always write lyrics later. Lyrics to me are a process that comes much later because a song will tell you what it's about over time. Very rarely does it all happen in one moment.
Okay, that's
you just pick up a guitar and download the song lyrics and everything. That's quite rare.
Yeah, that's rare.
Usually it's work. It's hard work, and it gets harder as you get older because now you're fighting yourself and fighting your own instincts and fighting your own habits.
What is a song that means a lot to you that you just love performing live?
One I've written?
Yes. Because Million Lights was beautiful.
Thank you, but it's like...
One, You Are My Only One.
Yes.
What I love, that's my favorite one.
Sometimes I'm barely touching your fingers.
That's it.
You leave me hanging on for days. I don't know if I can be your son. I don't know if I can be your son.
Yeah, that came out as two different songs.
Okay.
And in the studio it was put together with
Won't you be my only one?
that's the chorus that came later. So it's interesting about songs that can start here and end up here, and there's no real sense of the journey between them.
Because it changes a lot.
Yeah.
We were discussing it this morning. It just goes from there to there.
Yeah, it's very rarely, like I said earlier, where you download the entire song, verse, chorus, bridge, end in one go, title, lyrics. It can happen, but again, it's work. It takes a lot of work, and sometimes you write something, a verse that you really love, and it comes out with a bad chorus, and 20 years later, the right chorus
That's
arrives.
the worst when you can't get a chorus to this beautiful verse.
Yeah, but sometimes you have to realize that the songs, again, have a life of their own, and you need to just take a step back from it and let the song tell you when it's ready. It's a mystical process.
It doesn't want to.
It doesn't want to reveal itself, and it might not ever.
Some of your songs weren't ready, and now they are ready.
Yeah.
And now they want to be.
So, for example, last year I wrote the equivalent of 2 new Tree63 albums. It's a lot of material, And I thought, wow, I'm there. I've written 2 new albums. Somewhere in those 20-ish songs are 10 good ones.
Oh.
Start of this year, I look at them and I go, maybe I should scrap all of them and write 10 new ones. It's interesting because as a songwriter, you get so precious about what you write because it's so hard to do it.
Exactly.
And then you finish it and go, I'm a genius. And then you give it a month and you go, wow, I'm really bad at this.
Do you record them at home?
Yeah.
Got your self-produced?
Yeah. Well, I know, I just make demos.
Yes, I mean, and where do you record? You go on mission to record them yourself?
Well, that's the one thing about
producing.
About this modern music industry. It's quite difficult to record now on some levels because the way the industry's worked out in the last 20 years, most recording studios have closed down.
Yes.
There's no money left in having a commercial recording studio. People record on their own in their bedrooms now. But a rock band needs a big space to record and lots of these.
Yeah, lots of these.
And somebody who knows how to do this. So there is still a need for studios, but they're few and far between and they're expensive. In the old days, record companies used to pay for the recording. Now you are on your own. You've got to try and figure out how to do it on your own.
I think
tricky.
it is tricky, but I'm looking forward to your albums.
Me
and
too.
the things
I can't
to
wait.
come.
Yeah.
And your performances this year, and I'll be watching you in Sting's. Since you're such a big fan of Sting, used to be. Sting is coming.
I know.
Okay, so
I met him.
did you tell him, Sting, it's time that you write Confessional?
Yeah, he punched me in the face and
Did he
walked out
punch
the
you?
hotel.
Okay.
No, I did meet him and it was a big thrill.
It was, I'm sure.
New York City, 2001.
Amazing.
Quite something. He was shorter than I thought. I thought he was this god. This huge bass playing blonde Goliath, and he was shorter than anyone else in our band.
Really? He comes across as so tall. No. See,
Apparently Bono is very short too.
I prefer Sting to Bono. But
How
anyway.
dare you?
It's easy.
I'm leaving this podcast.
Bye. I like The Edge. He's cool.
Thank you.
I really like The Edge from you too. But I look forward to chatting with you again. Next time, are you going to play and we're going to set it up? And we're going to bring the others.
Well, I'll check my schedule and see if my podcast schedule allows space for you to be my next guest.
Okay, thank you.
But I've really enjoyed you being on my podcast.
Thank
today.
you. This was the best John Ellis podcast I've ever been on.
Thank
you that I could be your guest.
It's actually the inaugural one. You're the first guest on my podcast.
Am I the first one?
Yeah.
It's always that first guy.
Well done, Hanlé. You did a really beautiful job. You really confessed.
Thank you.
Explored the depths of who you are as a person.
Now it's just all over there for you to see. I look forward to your confessions next time. I see you on stage.
Yes.
And
thank you for the time to talk.
Yes, I really appreciate it, and it'll be okay.
It will.
Tree63, guaranteed. I look forward to the future. God bless you, John.
Sterkte.
Danke.